you very much, as always, for making the time for the Digital Inclusion Alliance today. The Alliance, it is its network of organisations, and so without you, we wouldn't exist. So thank you for making the time. We have a meeting today that is really focused on two things. It's focused on the launch of, or it is the launch of, the second edition of our agenda. And it is also an opportunity to hear from Professor Simeon Yates and colleagues about the minimum digital living standard work that the Alliance has been supporting within Wales. So I hope both of those will be of great interest to all members. It's also just to welcome, although I can't see there are so many people in the meeting, I can't actually see if he's here or not, but just to let people know, and if he's here, to welcome him, that we have added Anthony Tracy to your steering group. Anthony is the digital director in Hywel Dda University Health Board. We had identified that, as you know, health and social care is a priority for us, and we didn't have anyone actively involved in that sector sitting on the steering group. So we invited Anthony applied, and we invited him to join. And I think it'll be a really useful addition for the future. So just to let you know that. So what we're going to do is to take you through just briefly the kind of highlights of each of the priorities or chapters in the new agenda. So it's launched today. It's the product of a lot of hard work by a lot of people, so I'm very grateful to everyone for that. And I'm going to just start by just talking about the kind of introductory sections, so the about us and the cross-cutting themes. We have, as you will see, we have stated, we've just described the Alliance for people who are unfamiliar with it. And it's been really exciting, if you kind of look back to the first edition, which was not that long ago, how the Alliance has developed. And we have gone from really quite a small collection of organisations to now over 90 organisations in the network, which represents everything from big companies through to small community groups, and everything in between, working across public sector, third sector, private sector. And it's made us, I think, a really significant force in the world of digital inclusion. And I think that's reflected. One of our objectives as a network is to influence and to encourage government and others to really keep focused on digital inclusion. And we're very lucky in Wales, I think, with our colleagues in Welsh Government in that respect. But it's really beginning to have an impact. And so not only is the work on the minimum digital living standard something that we were promoting and we'll talk about later in the meeting, but also just to let members know that we've been specifically invited to give evidence both in writing and in person to a House of Lords Select Committee, the Communications and Digital Select Committee. In fact, we're giving evidence next week. And they're looking at the impact of the cost of living crisis on digital inclusion, and they wanted to hear from us in Wales about that, to get our evidence to inform their thinking. And I think it's fantastic that they've come to the Alliance, and the reason they've come to the Alliance is because the membership of the Alliance are close to and understand the lived experience of people who are digitally excluded, and that is the real value, I think, of the network. And it's fantastic to see that being recognised at UK level. We took, as a cross-cutting theme, we lifted out co-production and user-centred design, user research. We lifted that out of one of the priorities and made it a kind of cross-cutting priority. And it is so important. It is very easy, isn't it, for people who are not digitally excluded to kind of think we know what digitally excluded people need. And as I say, the value of the network is that we are in the communities that are most digitally disadvantaged, and are able, therefore, to understand the lived experience and to focus on that, and to focus on what would really make a difference for those people, to help them get online if they do so. So we've really emphasized in all the work that is done around digital inclusion, it should be done with people who are digitally excluded. It should be through co-production. And if we do that, we are much more likely to have the impact we want to have. So that's just kind of setting the scene. And I want you to kind of bear that in mind and hold that in your mind as we look at the individual priority areas as well. So with that, I'm going to pass on and ask Giselle, who's going to talk about our first priority. Thanks very much, Giselle. Joe, is Joe here? Sarah?
She is here. Sorry, I've just got off mute. I'm having problems. I've updated to Windows 11, so I'm having some technical issues as we go. Right, okay. Hi, everyone, and thanks, Hamish. So priority 1 for the Alliance is around embedding digital inclusion across all sectors. So I'm not going to talk too specifically about many areas because that will be covered across the other priorities. But I guess for me, first and foremost, you know, the Alliance is the catalyst about being able to actually achieve priority 1. As Hamish has already mentioned, one organisation alone is not going to create a digitally included nation in Wales. It's going to take everyone and a concerted effort across all sectors to make that happen. So I guess the overarching theme around priority 1 is how we work across those sectors to ensure digital inclusion is embedded strategically and operationally and isn't an afterthought or somebody else's problem to solve. So in terms of the outcomes, they haven't really changed a lot between the first edition and the second edition of the agenda. They still are pretty much the same. But some of the things that have been achieved over the last 12, 18 months as part of the Alliance and the organisations within it and the work of Digital Communities Wales, I just wanted to kind of pick up on a couple of those just to give you examples of what has been achieved to date. So obviously there's the Centre for Digital Public Services and the Digital Services Standard Wales that considers digital inclusion. There's the mapping exercise that was commissioned by Welsh Government and the CDPS that now sits on Data Map Wales that covers kind of all sectors, and it's around basically anyone offering support for digital inclusion, and that map is going to kind of improve as we go on and get more data onto that. There's the Newid partnership, which is made up of Compass, WCVA and Promo Cymru, and that's specifically working with the third sector to support the digital transformation, and then links into DCW for the inclusion side of it. An example from the housing sector, we've been working with housing associations across the whole of Wales to support the development of the eCymru portal. I won't say too much about it because I've got a feeling Caddy might touch on that later on in the session, but that's a really great example of how the sectors come together to support inclusion of tenants and sharing of resources. Libraries as another example, we've been doing some pilots with different library services across Wales and completing skills audits with the staff, and on the back of that rolling out a training programme that's available to the whole of the library staff across Wales. Health, Hamish has already touched on that one. Actually, I was going to say, you know, it's great that we've got Anthony on board with the steering group for the Alliance, which is fantastic. Another piece of work that we've been doing in terms of health, but again, I'm not going to touch too much on it because I know Hamish will pick up on other pieces of work, But DCW have been part of the private beta testing of the NHS Wales app. And on the back of that, we're going to be delivering a roadshow across Wales to support people and communities in being able to kind of use the app and access it. Another bit, that Audit Wales have done a report which is due to be launched in March around digital inclusion in Wales. So there'll be some really interesting findings in that. And then the private sector is probably the one area we haven't done so much as across the Alliance or through the Digital Communities Wales programme. But what we have done is commissioned some research to look at the impact of digital exclusion on small businesses in Wales and as a result on its customers. Once we get that report finalised, which should be due in the next month, then we'll be able to bring the recommendations to the Alliance and share those with you. But we'll be having a big focus on working with the private sector in the next 12 months. And that's priority 1 in a nutshell.
Thanks very much, Jo. And then I'll just quickly talk about priority 2. So priority 2, you will recall, is about health and social care. And if I could have the slide, Sarah, please. It's about mainstreaming digital inclusion in health and social care. And again, you know, it's very striking how much progress there has been made in this area, both in terms of the service which is delivering more and more of its services digitally, and that is only going to get a greater pace. But also the engagement that we're now getting from health and social care to really understand the important role they have to play in digital inclusion. And it's just not acceptable for them to kind of roll out digital services and just assume that somebody else will help patients and indeed staff to use those services. So we've seen that a number of health organisations have now come on board and have got digital inclusion programs or teams or a focus. So Digital Health and Community Wales, the news, or what was news, not so new now, Special Health Authority for digital in health and social care. We've seen Betsy Cadwallader including digital inclusion in its work and its strategy. Velindra University NHS Trust, Halvar, who really led the way by appointing a digital inclusion manager and team and a digital inclusion program. And it was great that we were able to speak at their initial conference, their inaugural conference recently in Carmarthen. Health Education and Improvement Wales. And in fact, all health boards and trusts now are beginning to understand the importance of this. And then, of course, importantly, Social Care Wales as well. So we're working very closely with Social Care Wales to understand the needs of their workforce and the citizens they care for. So lots going on in this very important area. And with that, I'm going to hand on to Emma, who's going to talk about priority 3.
Hi everybody. So priority 3 is about addressing data poverty as a key issue. And this just continues, if we think back a year ago, to feel as important, if not more important, than when we launched the first edition. And certainly the pressures on households and those supporting them through the voluntary community and private and public sectors are just increasing. So there's a real importance to this priority still, and we've updated it to reflect some of the work that has happened, including work that Alliance members have been involved with. Several of you will have been at a really excellent quarterly meeting of the network where people spoke really powerfully about the impact this is having on people that they and their organisations are supporting. And several of you also will have responded to invitations to join the National Data Bank, to support with the guide around supporting people with data connectivity, and also to promote the Help for Households campaign as part of raising awareness of social tariffs. We're still waiting to hear on the latest data about what uptake is of social tariffs, but it feels really important, and there was a sense of this is an area where an alliance of cross-sector organisations with reach out into different communities across Wales can really help to raise awareness of support that is available. But alongside that, what you'll see in the outcomes is also a sense that we're not only wanting to think about what are the short-term ameliorations, we're also wanting to contribute to developing some of those longer-term solutions around data, but also around things like more sustainable access to devices. So it just feels as though this is a priority outcome where the Alliance has absolutely made a contribution, and where we need to continue to make an important contribution, looking to the long term as well as the immediate circumstances. I'll hand over to next for priority 4.
Emma, thank you very much. And so now Simon is going to talk about priority 4.
As he remembers to unmute himself. Yeah, thank you. I'm Simon. I'm from DVLA, and I think in the post-COVID economy especially, there's a massive need for basic digital skills and digital skills for work. And we, in a transforming organisation with over 5,000 staff, are facing that challenge ourselves as we move more services online and change the way we work internally. Even basic digital skills are a focus for us, and obviously externally in households or in workplaces. You can give people the tools they need. Data poverty can be addressed, but if they haven't got the skills to use them, there's still a massive barrier. So priority 4 is about digital skills for work and life in the economy, removing those barriers for people who may have the technology, may not have it, but still giving them the skills. They don't see it as a barrier, and it's accessible and an opportunity to embrace technology for all. I think I was saying to Hamish earlier that technology has given us some great things, it's taken away our snow days, but I think we know how important it is in our lives, and it's still a massive concern where people don't have that access because they don't have the skills. So priority 4 has been widened. We've widened the scope of this to digital skills and work for life. And there's a lot of great work that's gone on. So I'll go over some of the highlights, some of the achievements so far, which have been the UK Community Renewables Fund has provided a channel and resources for partnerships who are interested in digital skills pilot projects. And then several Digital Inclusion Alliance Wales members have been involved in supporting the development of approaches to digital skills through this. And then the new UK Shared Prosperity Fund is also a route to continue this work, and the Alliance is working with the Growth and City Region deals to ensure digital inclusion remains a priority in this funding stream. There's been some great work by Good Things Foundation to improve the learner experience across both English and Welsh language versions. They've been working with the Compass team on improvements to Learn My Way, and this is offering free online courses for beginners to help them to develop digital skills. I think Joe mentioned Newid earlier, being developed and obviously coordinated by WCVA, Compass and Pro Cymru in consultation with voluntary sectors to ensure maximum impact for that work. I know Digital Communities Wales are continuing their great work delivered by Compass, partnered by Swansea Union Good Things Foundation, offering free digital support to organisations across Wales. And since the agenda's publication in March 2021, DCW has conducted digital skills audits with a number of authorities, directorates, third sector orgs, gathering insight on over 2,600 staff and volunteers as of February 2023. So a massive piece of work that's happening there. So I suppose you can see there's a lot of progress being made, but we're under no illusions. There's still a massive challenge still ahead, and a lot more to be done as we focus on priority 4 over the next year. I'll just pass on for the next one. Thank you.
Simon, thanks so much indeed, and a really essential and impressive amount of progress, I think, in that area, but there will always be a lot of work to do. Which brings it on to the 5th and final priority, which we're very excited about, particularly because we called for it in our first edition, and it's been fantastic to hear that call heard. And so Emma is kind of going to talk about that.
Yeah, so priority 5 is about implementing a new minimum digital living standard for Wales. And as Hamish said, this is just such an area where the Alliance, we can feel really proud of having called for this and also been involved in developing this throughout. So a minimum digital living standard is really about setting a standard, setting a benchmark that can be agreed about what a household needs in order to be digitally included. And building on what Simon's just said there, this is a holistic approach, so it has to think about the skills as well as about the data connectivity, as well as having a suitable device. And there just is no set standard for that. As Hamish said right at the start, one of the things that we did in this priority area, this had been where it was about the minimum digital living standard and co-production, but we all agreed that co-production needs to be a cross-cutting theme, but absolutely important to reflect here that this standard has been developed, defined, every item in it has been deliberated by members of the public through a series of focus groups using a really robust methodology. So although co-production it really lives up to that co-production as a theme. And also the research that the Welsh Government commissioned, which we'll hear more about later in this meeting, also then was involving and listening to a number of stakeholders and several of you as Alliance members. Thank you for taking part in that stakeholder research and in the surveys as well. So in terms of the next stages, Simeon will be talking about phase 2, which has been commissioned, and also the work that is happening alongside for a UK minimum digital living standard. But I think it's kind of the focus of the outcome now is really about how this can be used in Wales by Alliance members through our networks to really understand, use this as a catalyst for coordinating action across data devices and skills. So that's where the outcomes are really about moving into talking about and developing strategy, policies, some clear recommendations for the Welsh Government, for the UK Government, but also for other stakeholders, ourselves included.
Emma, thank you very much indeed. So that concludes a kind of whistle-stop tour of the 5 priority areas as they have been kind of refreshed and refined and updated since our first edition was published. As I say, it's very exciting that we're launching the 2nd edition today, and we very much hope that you will both read it, enjoy it, be encouraged by it, challenged by it, but also will share it with your own networks and colleagues. I think the overwhelming thing that I've got from it is just, as I say, the sense of progress that has been made in what is such an important and challenging area. Across Wales in really all of the priority areas. And the whole point about us setting 5 priorities, we could have had 10, we could have had 20. We deliberately restricted ourselves to 5 that we thought were really the top priorities, so that we could focus as a network and as an alliance on really trying to make a difference, to shift the dial, if you like, in those areas. And in each of those areas, there has been real progress, and that is down to many people, but mostly down to you, the network members, who are working so hard to do that. And we didn't feel that we've tweaked some of the priorities, but we didn't feel the need either to stand any down, because we felt there was still work to do, nor to introduce new ones, because we felt that was the right thing, was to keep focus on these 5 top priorities. We are, as an alliance, we've grown in size. That's given us more voice, more impact, and as I say, that's reflected in a request to give evidence to UK Gov, not just within Wales, and that's just fantastic as a reflection of the value that is seen in the alliance, and we really hope that we will continue to grow, continue to have impact. And most importantly, continue to learn from each other, because that is another important strength of the Alliance, is people telling us what they're doing and others thinking, oh, we could do that in our community too.